Our perspective, my own perspective, that of my organization, is actually about when the state commits violence against women, either by action or by omission. By action, basically by denying women their rights, by failing to be a duty bearer, by failing women citizens. By omission, it's by failing to protect women from violence in the household. So for us, our analysis is the state is responsible for the safety of women, for their livelihoods, and for the enjoyment of their rights. Not doing so means that the state is a failing state. And this is the key issue in relation to violence against women, I think, in the MENA region.
Certainly what we hope to comes today is a sharing of good strategies to be able to deal with the many challenges facing you. What do you, from your perspective, what do you see as some of the key strategies in dealing with this issue?
From the perspective of the work that we've been doing so far, I think we were able to tease out a few lessons in terms of strategies. Maybe strategies for success is too pompous, but let's say strategies that would allow you, that would support you in your work. One of them, maybe the key, is working in coalitions and partnership. Women's issues, particularly in our region, are not specific to one community or one country. In fact, they're very much similar. Their manifestation may differ from one place to another, but they are similar. The root causes of women's inequality, of the subordination of women, is patriarchy. Patriarchy is general in this region. So working in coalition, in partnership, means that you're not working in isolation, means that you can learn from each other, and it means that you can support each other. So that's one of the learning that we tried to share, here. Another learning is definitely using different ways of campaigning and of advocacy. We've tried and tested over the past few years using ICT and social media. And as first-timers, this is not usual, at least for us, in terms of work on advocacy and campaigning. And what we felt is that it allowed us to reach a much wider audience. It allowed us to reach and mobilize young people. And it allowed us to reach and mobilize women in the diaspora, and at the same time it has allowed us to communicate widely, to spread knowledge widely, which, for instance, one of the things that happen is that when we have an advocacy event, a sit-in, a demonstration, whatever, and we advertise it on Facebook, all of a sudden you have all these young people who show up, who actually tell each other, who take action with each other, and at the other hand has allowed us to create space for new initiatives popping up. So, for instance, just to give you an example, in our Nationality Campaign, when it was time to have the parliamentary elections in Lebanon, and the Nationality Campaign is a regional campaign calling for Arab states to reform their nationality laws. So we were coming up to the parliamentary election, and this one young woman came up with this initiative. We never saw her. We've always communicated with her on Facebook, saying, you know, she created a whole new parallel campaign, which was about boycotting candidates who refused to change the law, which took shape on its own. And of course, there was something we never planned for. But these were the new possibilities that ICTs were given us. The third learning or third strategy which we found works is actually documenting and disseminating knowledge. We have been in the past quite careless for different reasons in terms of documenting what we do, analyzing it, sharing it, etc. Now we're doing this more and more, and we think it is quite an important success element. Another success element, I think, is the fact that you cannot campaign effectively if you do not make the link between women in the grassroots, policies, policymakers, and the international arena. And one of the things that we found out, for instance, which also we didn't plan to do, was how empowering it is for an ordinary woman to be face-to-face with a minister and to be able to tell him or her, you know, your laws do not work, your laws ruin my life, and therefore you need to change them. So that link is one of the major elements of success.
What do you see as the best way, I guess, for women who seek a peaceful change, to deal with situations where the opposing side is aggressive?
Yes, that's quite an important question, and let me go a step backward. I think there's a classical or a common view, particularly in the West, that there is a state that is physically oppressive through its military arms, through whatever, and if you do demonstrate, then you're likely to go to jail, or you can have any other forms of reprisals. And that is certainly what happened, for instance, with our friends and colleagues in Iran. I think the Iranians have given us quite a wonderful example of resilience, of continuing the struggle, of basically different forms of resistance. But however, if you allow me, I want to look at other forms of challenges that you face with the state. In many situations in our countries, you may not go to jail if you demonstrate, or if you send out a flyer, or if you do a press conference and you name and shame the state. But what happens is something that has a similar effect as a state that oppresses you with its military arm. And this is a situation where the state simply ignores you, totally ignores you. You can do whatever you want, but it's as if you live in a virtual or parallel world. And this, we're finding this more difficult to deal with than an evil that is in front of you, that's using arms, etc. And it's even more difficult to communicate how do you deal with such a situation, which is very how can I describe it? It's very smart, actually. It's a very insidious form of not responding to you by simply ignoring you. And this is what I would like to answer. What we do normally is we step up our work, we communicate internationally, we mobilize our regional alliances, we use every single opportunity to actually tell the truth and basically to put our government on the spot for the things that they have not responded to, or that they've said they would do something and they didn't do it. So I think the key word is resilience, continuity, and motivation. And just to end this, I think one of the points that we've made in the Nationality Campaign is that we're not going away. It's continuing. And, as long as you're not responding, we're there with the demands, etc. We may from time to time step back and look at our strategies, at, whether there's something new we're going to use, etc. But I think the key message that we made clear is that we're here to stay.
What's your hope for the next generation?
What's my hope for the next generation?
What do you see as opportunities with the younger generation?
I can only look at the next generation with optimism. Whether or not the optimism is justified is another story. I personally believe that there is a limit to ignorance, there's a limit to violence, and there's a limit to this obscurantist world in which we're living, to these states and government that it's as if they're coming from the Middle Ages. I think that if we are able to pass on the activism in which we're engaged now to the next generation, not just our children, our students, our fellow colleagues, etc., I think it will not stop. There have been different forms of activisms and people demanding their rights for ages in different ways, and I really don't think it's going to stop now.
What made me ask you that question was just that you've taken marvelous opportunity of new media, and new ways to be able to talk and speak with people.
We've also used films and documentaries extensively, actually. Films and documentaries not just to communicate, but it was wonderful to have finally to have women who would accept to be filmed and to talk about themselves without being covered or anything, without fearing reprisals from internal security, for instance. I think these kind of changes can only go forward. They cannot go backward.
Usually can't put the genie back in the bottle.
It comes back again. They do tend to come back again. That's the thing. Yeah.
10th anniversary of the WLP. What kind of impact do you think this organization has had on your work in particular and in the movement overall?
I can think of several, actually. In terms of the linkages and the solidarity, we've always worked within the, I wouldn't say the box, but at least within the geographical boundaries of our region. One of the things through this partnership is that it has allowed this work to be international. I've been personally involved, for instance, with our partners and colleagues in Nigeria, which is through this partnership. It has been a learning opportunity for both of us. It has allowed us to to work together. It has allowed us to provide support to each other, which hasn't been the case before. Secondly, I think something very tangible has come out from these 10 years. The quality and amount of knowledge that has been produced, documented, and disseminated is amazing. And I'm amazed at, experimenting with the methodology in different parts of the world is actually a skill that we have all discovered and developed. The other thing is, all of us are now campaigning internationally. It's not a tiny intervention or a small demonstration somewhere. The scale of our campaigning work and our advocacy work, it's a situation where the sky is the limit almost. I'm not just talking about the Nationality Campaign. Our involvement, for instance, in solidarity with the campaign in Iran, with other campaigns, wouldn't have been possible without that. And finally, the whole areas of building skills and a way of working that is incremental, that is not donor-led, that takes into consideration that you need an intellect behind, you need a concept, you need a theoretical framework, so that you can begin to learn to work at the grassroots, understanding where you work, working slowly, and understanding that change doesn't happen overnight, that actually sometimes it might take you 3 or 4 years or 5 years to have women agreeing to speak up or agreeing to be interviewed, etc. I think that appreciation is quite unique, and building on this appreciation and developing this work, developing a methodology of work that understand the context, understand that how does the process of change and transformation occur, is actually, I think, something unique. I think the catalyst, if you want, somebody has played a catalyst role at different level, a catalyst role in the production and the dissemination of knowledge, the catalyst role in making local actions global, a catalyst role in bringing people together. And I think this is what the Women Learning Partnership has contributed to. This multifaceted role of being able to bring people together, to make the knowledge accessible to everybody, to make possible an opening to the outside world. I think that is one of the major raison d'etre and forte of the Women Learning Partnership.